Yo, what's up, guys? It's Noah here, breaking down the NBA slate on Draftkings and Yahoo for Saturday, February the 29th. We're going to cover Saturday's 7-game slate, go position by position, just talk about the players that stand out to me the most, looking at this slate the night before. I am recording this video on Friday night, so these are just some of my early thoughts. We'll take a look at DraftKings pricing, we'll hit on some guys I like there. We'll switch over to Yahoo, we'll talk about a couple players I like over on Yahoo as well. Just before we do get started, guys, as always, I would appreciate it if you would drop a like down below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. If you are new to the channel, if you've never checked out a video of mine before, if this is your first time on my channel, thank you so much for clicking on the video. I do really appreciate it. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, click the notification bell as well, so that way you do get notified every time I upload. I do usually post NBA videos every day of the week if I can. I always get videos up Monday through Friday. But I've been trying to upload more on the weekends, just try and get as much content out as possible. I'll be covering NBA rest of season till the regular season's over. When baseball starts, I will have MLB videos up daily as well. So I do provide a lot of content to this YouTube channel. As always, guys, would appreciate it if you would subscribe and click that notification bell. Also, if you would like, you can check out my Patreon, link down below. It is the last day of the month, so if you want to sign up to the Patreon, I would suggest you probably wait until Sunday to sign up. Because the way Patreon works, they charge you when you sign up, and they charge you at the first of every month. So you're going to get charged twice. I'll refund you the money if you do sign up tomorrow. Just let me know that you signed up, and I'll send you a refund. But you can check out the Patreon. I suggest signing up on Sunday if you would like. See all the exclusive content I do have to offer over there. I do post an article Monday through Friday. It's usually like an 8 to 10 page article breaking down the slate. I do that Monday through Friday. I give updated core plays pretty much every single day. I'm trying to do those on the weekends now. I post my article just on the weekdays. I don't post an article on the weekend, but I still do give updated core plays on the weekend. I'll probably have some updated core plays for this slate. You can check all my core plays out over there. You can get access to our Discord chat as well, where we're talking through the slate 24/7. I'm in there always, just throughout the day, answering questions. If you guys ever need any lineup suggestion or lineup help, I'm always in the Discord answering questions. So check all the Patreon content out, link down below. Also, link down below is my Twitter. If you want to follow me there, I would greatly appreciate it, at DFS by Noah. But that's enough rambling. Let's go ahead and take a look at today's slate. We'll start off at point guard. Where at the top we do have LeBron James as our most expensive option. He is $11,100 on DraftKings. He's the most expensive player overall. We don't know LeBron's status as of Friday night. This is one of the big injuries we're going to have to watch heading into Saturday. LeBron sat out their game Thursday against the Warriors with a groin injury. He's questionable today. If I had to guess, I would say he most likely plays. But this will just be news we have to wait and see on. Hopefully we get an update in the afternoon, like after shoot-around. Obviously, if LeBron is out, we're going to talk about Anthony Davis, who would become a really good play. But LeBron himself, I doubt I'd get to him at $11,100. I think I'd rather save and play a guy like James Harden. I mean, Harden just has overall better numbers on the season than LeBron does. He's a more productive player overall. It's not the best matchup against Boston, but I mean, even in a tough matchup, like Harden can still get you 60, 65 DraftKings points with ease. He put up 67 DK points in 38 minutes against Boston earlier this season. I do like James Harden quite a bit. I think my favorite pay-up option, though, at point guard is Trae Young. Trae Young was someone I was very high on Friday night. Right now, he's not having the best game, which is very disappointing, very frustrating. I was pretty heavy on him. He was one of my highest owned players Friday night. Just love the matchup for him against Brooklyn. Even if he struggles and even if he finishes with a bad game Friday night, I'm going to be going right back to him on Saturday. This is a smash spot for Trae Young against Portland. This game overall between the Blazers and the Hawks, I think, is one of the most appealing games on the slate to target. We don't have any totals yet besides Brooklyn-Miami. That's the only game on the slate that has a total right now at 223. If I had to guess, I'm pretty confident this Portland-Atlanta game is going to have the highest total on the slate. We're probably going to see it close to 240. You've got two very fast-paced teams. The Hawks are playing at the 7th fastest pace this season. The Trailblazers are playing at the 12th fastest pace. Both of these teams are terrible defensively. Portland is 27th in defensive rating. The Hawks are 28th in defensive rating. We should see a lot of points scored here. Really no defense going to be played. I love this spot for Trae Young. I think he has massive upside in this spot. I mean, he put up 65 DK points earlier this season against the Blazers. I could easily see him putting up a similar performance to that, if not better. Young has 75 point upside today, so he's one of my favorite pay-up options. Right now, I'm not going to include him into the early core, but if we get a lot of value as the day goes on and it makes it easier to pay up for Trae Young, I think getting Trae Young into my core play is probably going to be something I try and do because I think he just has massive upside here. I think a guy like CJ McCollum also has a ton of upside, and given the lack of value, at least as of now, there's some value that we'll talk about that I do like, but there's not like any clear must-play values. I think the savings dropping down from Trae Young to CJ McCollum makes a lot of sense. CJ McCollum is $9,200 on DraftKings, over $1,000 less than Trae Young. Over on Yahoo, Trae Young is $48, whereas CJ McCollum is $40, so you're getting $8 in savings there. I like CJ McCollum quite a bit on Yahoo as well. So just with Damian Lillard out the last few games, I mean, CJ McCollum has just played at such a high level, getting massive minutes every game, 37, 43, 38 minutes, 50, 76, 55, 43 DraftKings points. He's had some really tough matchups facing the Pacers, the Celtics, just his last two games. Had a decent matchup against Detroit, put up a monster game, 76 DK points. Had a good matchup against the Pelicans, put up 50 DK points there. This is one of the best matchups that McCollum has had just as of late. Just in his last 10 games, this is probably the best matchup he's going to get. I mean, facing the Hawks is like one of the best matchups you can get overall in terms of how bad their defense is and how fast they play. Even with Lillard healthy, earlier this season, McCollum did put up 46 DK points against the Hawks, and that was with Damian Lillard playing. You take Damian Lillard off the floor, CJ McCollum, to no surprise, gets a massive boost. Sees a big bump in usage, also sees a bump in his fantasy production as well. I believe he averages about 1.25 fantasy points per minute, if I'm not mistaken. 1.24 fantasy points per minute, has a 34% usage rate with Damian Lillard off the floor, 31% assist percentage, just elite numbers for CJ McCollum. He's expensive. He's $9,200. I think with his price being so expensive, like maybe he comes in at low ownership today. I think if I can, I want to probably stack up Trae Young and CJ McCollum. Like that's the way that I want to go in tournaments. I think that two-man stack gives you so much upside. I think just playing a lot of guys from this game makes a lot of sense. If it can stay close, like I could see the final score in this game being like 120 to 125 or 130, 135. Like you could see probably 240, 250, 255 points scored in this game. Like I would not be surprised at all even if it has like a 240 total, I wouldn't be surprised to see this game go over that total. So I really like Trae Young, really like CJ McCollum. Those are definitely two of my favorite spend-ups on today's slate. But looking at some other options we could go to, Devin Booker, he was pretty popular Friday night against the against the Pistons. I had a good amount of him on DK. He's 8,100 today, got a little bit of a price bump. Still a little bit too cheap on DraftKings. It's a good matchup against the Warriors. We know Devin Booker is going to play huge minutes if the game is close. Kelly Oubre is going to be out for a while, so Devin Booker does get a little bump in usage with Oubre off the floor. I think you can definitely play Booker at his salary. Spencer Dinwiddie finally had a good game Friday night. At least last time I checked, he had like 35 DK points heading into the halfway through the third quarter. Finally got a good game from Spencer Dinwiddie. I was talking about him in Friday's video. Like, he's not going to be as bad as he's been. When you take Kyrie off the floor, Dinwiddie has over a 30% usage rate, averaging like 1.2 fantasy points per minute. Now, obviously, this is a very tough matchup against Miami, but the price tag came down quite a bit on Spencer Dinwiddie. He's down to 7,400 on DK. I do have a good amount of interest in him, even in a tough matchup. I think Dinwiddie is definitely in play, even though the matchup is kind of tough. I still like him a good amount. Then other point guards, tough matchup for Ja Morant, but his price tag has come way down on DraftKings, so I did want to mention him. He's at 6,200. He was pretty cheap Friday night. I think he's having a decent game. Last time I checked, he was having a decent game Friday night, so maybe he can keep that momentum going heading into Saturday's game. This game is being played at home. Memphis is at home, so that should make it at least a little bit more likely it stays close. Last time the Lakers and Grizzlies played, I'm pretty sure it was a blowout, if I'm not mistaken. They played a couple of days ago. Or actually, it wasn't a blowout, but it was actually kind of a close game. The Grizzlies lost by 12. But still, if no LeBron as well, like obviously that makes it much more likely the game stays close. I mean, if we're going to get 30, 32 minutes from Ja Morant at 6,200, I think he's totally in play in that mid-range at point guard. But then some other guys, we do know LaMarcus Aldridge is going to be out again. Dejounte Murray was kind of disappointing last game with Aldridge out. Didn't really do well. Just played 23 minutes, had 22 DK points. He does see a nice bump in his usage and fantasy production when you take Aldridge off the floor. So at 5,600, it's a risky tournament play. You never know what you're going to get from Dejounte Murray, especially because the minutes can be so inconsistent. But this guy has massive upside. If he plays like 30, 32 minutes, like he could go for 45 DK points, and I really wouldn't be surprised. So I did want to mention him. Murray is definitely in play as a tournament option at 5,600. And then in terms of value options at point guard, if LeBron is out, Rajon Rondo is 4,200. That's still too cheap for Rondo if he's going to start and play about 30 minutes, which he was on pace to in their last game. Even in a blowout where he didn't play in the fourth quarter, still played 26 minutes, had 29 DK points with LeBron out. I'd expect him to put up probably better numbers today if LeBron were to sit again. Really good matchup against Memphis. Pace-up spot here for the Lakers. Definitely, or I wouldn't say definitely, I think Rondo, he'd probably be one of the best plays on the slate if LeBron is out again. When LeBron's out, he should be like 5,500, 6K. Like, you're still getting a massive discount on Rajon Rondo. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the shooting guard position. So, looking at this position, Jimmy Butler, 7,800 against Brooklyn, I think is fine to go to. I like that matchup a good amount. I don't know if I can play Butler, though, or Butler over a guy like DeMar DeRozan. DeRozan's 7,600 on DK. I still like him a ton today. He was very popular on the last slate. Once we got the news LaMarcus Aldridge was going to be out in that game against Dallas, a lot of people flocked to DeRozan, including myself. He just became one of the clear plays of the day. He was 7K. He was way too cheap. Put up 51 DraftKings points in 34 minutes with Aldridge out. Whenever you take Aldridge off the floor, DeRozan does see like a massive spike in usage, massive spike in his fantasy production just overall. We'll take a look at the numbers this season with Aldridge off the floor. Pretty sure his usage rate is like 33 or 34%, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's at 32.9, so pretty much 33%. Averaging 1.29 fantasy points per minute, 27.6% assist percentage, just elite numbers from DeMar DeRozan. The price tag, it's still too cheap for him in my opinion. 7,600, like he can still easily go 6-7x value on that salary. I know it's not the best spot against Orlando. Orlando plays at a slow pace. They're pretty good defensively. But if we're going to get 32, 34 minutes from DeMar DeRozan with no Aldridge at 7,600, like he can go for 50 DraftKings points again, and I would not be surprised at all. So I still like DeRozan a lot today at 7,600 with Aldridge out. I think he's one of the clear plays in that mid-range at shooting guard or small forward. He is small forward eligible as well. I do like him on Yahoo. He is expensive. He's $38. I think I'm more inclined to probably go to a guy like CJ McCollum. Like when you have DeRozan for 38 or McCollum for 40, like I would much rather just play McCollum for 40. Also, we're going to talk about Aaron Gordon, who's just been on an absolute tear recently. You do have Aaron Gordon for $6 less than DeMar DeRozan, and I think I'd rather save salary there and go to Aaron Gordon. So not going to include DeRozan in the Yahoo core, but I think on DraftKings, he looks really good at 7,600. And then other shooting guard plays, looking in this mid-range, I mean, not really much stands out here. At least looking at this like the night before, I don't see any core plays in this mid-range. Dillon Brooks still feels a little bit too cheap at 5,200. Pretty sure him and John Morant are both having good games on Friday night, so hopefully they can keep that momentum heading into Saturday. Tough matchup, but, I mean, if you're going to get like 32, 34 minutes from Dillon Brooks at 5,200, you know he's going to take a ton of shots. He took 26 shots in their last game against Houston. That was with Jaren Jackson Jr. and Brandon Clark both out. We know those guys are going to be out for a pretty long period of time, at least like a week or two. So I expect Brooks to continue just to see a lot of shot volume. He still feels a little bit too cheap on DK, so I did want to mention him as a shooting guard value. Cam Reddish, a guy I like a ton today. He's 4,300 on DraftKings. He did put up a very big game Friday night, at least last time I checked, like heading into the fourth quarter. He had like 30 DraftKings points, I believe, heading into the fourth. He shot really well Friday night, and although I don't expect him to shoot that well like every single game, the minutes should still be there for Cam Reddish. They did move him into the starting lineup on Friday night, which I think is a little bit of a plus for him. I think that just secures his minutes even more. Most nights he's going to play pretty heavy minutes. While Dwayne Dedmon remains out, I think we're going to see the Hawks continue to run John Collins at the 5. That's going to be their starting lineup. And then they're going to play like Hunter, Herter, Reddish, and Trae Young. Those 4 guys are going to be on the floor. So I like Cam Reddish quite a bit. If we're going to get massive minutes from him again, he's cheap on DraftKings. He's very cheap on Yahoo. He was pretty popular Friday night on Yahoo. He was like 30% owned in some tournaments. I think he's going to be popular again, but at $11, it's really hard to get away from him at that salary. I mean, he's near minimum salary on Yahoo. This is a great game to target, obviously. This game's going to have a massive total, I have to assume. You're going to see a ton of points scored here. 2 fast-paced teams, 2 bad defensive teams. just sets up so well for DFS. I think Reddish at 4,300 on DK. You could also go to as well. I think I prefer him on Yahoo, though, where he's $11. That's where he really stands out the most. But even on DraftKings at 4,300, I'm totally fine with him as a value option. Gary Trent as well, you could target. He's a little bit more inconsistent than Cam Reddish, if I had to guess. Like, his minutes are going to be a little bit more inconsistent. At least he did get 41 minutes last game, though. That was a massive plus. I mean, 41 minutes, 30 DraftKings points. You really never know what you're going to get from Gary Trent Jr. I think, like I said, Reddish gives you a little bit more consistency. So if I had to choose one of the two guys, I'd prefer Reddish at the same salary. But if we're going to get big minutes from Gary Trent Jr. again in a great matchup against the Hawks, like, just give me even more exposure to this game. Like, I'm fine rostering 4 or 5 players from this game in my lineup, just like full game stacking. And normally that's not something I do on a 7-game slate, but this game just looks so appealing, has so much DFS appeal that I could see it like the winning GPP lineup having probably 3, 4, maybe even 5 players from this game in it. Just a lot to like. And you got Reddish and Trent Jr., both as value options you could target from this game. But then the last guy I want to mention at shooting guard is Lonnie Walker. Lonnie Walker, 3,400 on DraftKings. He did get the start last game with LaMarcus Aldridge out, which I think was one of the biggest surprises. Everyone, including myself, expected Jakob Poeltl to get the start, but that just wasn't the case. Walker started, played 27 minutes, and had 24 DraftKings points. He's still really cheap on DraftKings today. He's only $400 off of minimum salary, $3,400. Like, if Lonnie Walker starts again, which I have to assume he does, given that he started last game, if he starts again and is going to play like close to 30 minutes, I think at 3,400, he is definitely in play as a value option, especially if a lot of people are going to roster Jakob Poeltl again. Like, I'd just rather roster whoever starts, and I have to assume it's going to be Lonnie Walker. So I like him a lot at 3,400 as a value option. I think he definitely stands out as like one of the better like punt options on the slate. We really don't have a ton of viable options under 4K today, at least as of now, when I'm recording this video Friday night. Maybe that could change heading into Saturday, but right now Walker does look like one of the best punt plays at 3,400. Danny Green is doubtful for today, so not really sure who's going to get the start here. If I have to guess, I'd say maybe KCP gets the start. So KCP should be looking at a few more minutes. Alex Caruso should probably play a few more minutes as well. Both those guys are pretty cheap. KCP is 3,600. Alex Caruso is 3,500. Now, if LeBron were to be out, then that would make these guys even more appealing, so they would definitely become viable punt options. If KCP starts, I mean, at 3,600, he's not the worst value option. If Caruso were to start, you could play him as well at 3,500. And like I said, if one of those guys starts and then you get LeBron out as well, that would just make those guys even more appealing. But we'll have to wait and see there with the Lakers. Definitely big stuff to watch heading into Saturday, whether LeBron is in or out. But looking at the small forward position, you got Jayson Tatum for 9,400 against Houston. I like this spot a lot for Jayson Tatum. I like this matchup. Nice pace-up spot here for the Celtics, facing the Rockets, who are playing at the second fastest pace this season. But at Tatum's price tag, I think I would rather roster like CJ McCollum for a little bit cheaper. I like McCollum's matchup just even more than Tatum's. I think I'd rather roster Whiteside as well. I really like Whiteside in that same game. He's $100 less than Tatum. But it's hard to argue against Tatum with how well he's playing right now. I mean, the dude's getting massive minutes, taking a ton of shots. I mean, 20, 22, 20 field goal attempts. Like, he's taking 20 shots a game. He's rebounding really well. 50-plus DraftKings points in 4 of his last 5 games. He's got 40-plus DraftKings points in literally 10 straight games. The dude's pretty much giving you like a 40, 45-point floor right now. Even in his bad games, he's still putting up 40-plus. We know that Kemba Walker is going to remain out for Saturday, which is a boost for Jayson Tatum, which is one of the reasons he's played so well, is because Kemba's been out. He does see a nice bump in usage when you take Kemba off the floor, a nice bump in his fantasy production. So I still like Jayson Tatum a good amount. I just think I would have him behind guys like McCollum, Whiteside. I think I do prefer those guys at a similar price range. But if you're playing multiple lineups, I would get some exposure to Jayson Tatum. Like, even at 9,400, he'd want to be a guy that I have in a good amount of my lineups. I'd want to be overweight on him in tournaments, especially if he's going to come in at low ownership. But other small forwards, Andrew Wiggins was a surprise late scratch last game against the Lakers. He's probable today. He's expected to play. The price tags came down a good amount. He's down to 6,800 on DraftKings. It's a pretty good matchup against the Suns. If the Warriors can keep this game close, I have to assume Wiggins plays probably like 32 minutes. So at 6,800, definitely a guy you could target. Just some mid-range options at small forward. Just looking to get more exposure to that Portland-Atlanta game. I think Kevin Huerter at 5,200 is a fine guy to go to. Dario Saric I like quite a bit on Yahoo. He's priced up a good amount. He's 4,900 on DraftKings, so I'm a little less interested there. But on Yahoo, they still have Dario Saric at minimum salary. He did start, I think that was Thursday night or Wednesday night's game against the Clippers. He started with Kelly Oubre out, played 31 minutes and had 20 fantasy points. He started Friday night as well against the Pistons. Not really sure how he's doing. That game's going on as I'm recording this video. Even if Sarge has a bad game Friday night, I like going back to him today at minimum salary. With Oubre out, I have to assume he's going to play about 30, 32 minutes a night. I mean, $10 is just too cheap for Dario Saric if he's going to be playing that amount of time. It's a really good matchup against the Warriors. Like, this guy can easily give you 30 fantasy points. He's been a fantasy point per minute player this season. Now, when he's in the starting lineup, that does hurt his fantasy production a little bit, but getting him in the starting lineup makes me feel confident that he gets the minutes, that he plays about 30 minutes. And at $10, that's really hard to pass up. So I do like Dario Saric a lot as a cheap small forward. I think he's a fine guy to look to. 4,900 on DK, fine to look to there, but $10 on Yahoo, minimum salary. That's where he really stands out the most. I think he's the guy I like most at the power forward position. Just in terms of value, he definitely stands out. Reddish and Sarge look like two of the better values just the night before. Maybe that could change, like depending on what injuries break throughout the day, but those are the two guys that really catch my eye looking at this slate on Friday night. But I think we covered everything for small forward values. I think we hit on all the guys that, or there's some guys here I've already talked about, but I think we've hit on everything. So let's go ahead and move on to the power forward position now. So Anthony Davis at the top, 10,200 against the Grizzlies. I do like AD quite a bit today. If LeBron plays, I'd have AD ranked behind guys like Trae Young. When you factor in that CJ McCollum's $1,000 less, I think I'd rather play CJ McCollum. But AD is definitely one of the better stud plays. Now, if LeBron is out, AD becomes my favorite stud option on the slate. I would rather play AD over Trae Young if LeBron is out. I know AD disappointed last game with LeBron out, but I mean, a lot of that had to do with blowout. He only played 25 minutes, didn't get any run in the fourth quarter. I mean, he had 39 DraftKings points still in 25 minutes. I was expecting him to be a little bit more productive than that, but I think you can expect a bounce-back game from AD. This game is much more likely to stay competitive. Even if LeBron's out, I think this can still be a close game. We should get big minutes from AD if it is a close game. He has really good numbers with LeBron off the floor this season, averaging like 1.65 fantasy points per minute. His usage rate sees a little bit of a spike. It's really just hard not to like AD. The price tag didn't go up. It actually went down. He's $100 less than he was on the last slate. So DraftKings really didn't even adjust his price for the potential of LeBron being out again. So if he's out, just lock in AD, becomes the best stud option on the slate and one of the top options overall. He'd be a guy I would try and jam into as many lineups as I could. I know he burned people last slate, including myself. But if LeBron's out, I'll be right back on AD. But other power forwards, so Aaron Gordon, did want to talk about him. 8,500 on DraftKings. He is really expensive. It's tough to get to him at that DraftKings salary, but I mentioned it earlier in the video. I really like Aaron Gordon at only $32 on Yahoo. I played him a good amount Friday night against Minnesota. He did have a triple-double in that game, had 52 fantasy points, played 41 minutes. Like, Aaron Gordon is just getting monster minutes right now. 40-plus minutes in 3 straight games, and all those games were in regulation. None of them went to overtime. 50-plus fantasy points in 3 straight games as well. Like, he is just playing at such a high level right now. If you look at his numbers from the last 2 weeks, like, he is putting up really good numbers. I'll pull them up real quick just so you guys can see. If you look at his season-long numbers, like, they're not that great. He's only averaged about a fantasy point per minute on the season. Hold up, let me change the date range to the last 2 weeks. Like I was saying, if you look at Gordon's season-long numbers, like I said, he only averages like a fantasy point per minute, has like a 20% usage rate. But if you look at his numbers from the last 2 weeks, they've been much better, averaging 1.29, so nearly 1.3 fantasy points per minute. Usage rate's about the same. The assist percentage is up a little bit, 18.5%. The total rebound percentage is up as well at 14.2%. Like, Gordon is just playing so well right now. It's not the best matchup against the Spurs, but it's hard to ignore what he's doing. He's 8,500, so he's going to be low-owned. He was low-owned on DraftKings Friday night. He was actually kind of popular on Yahoo because the price tag hasn't caught up to the production. And because his price didn't move on Yahoo, he's still $32. I expect him to be popular again, but I'm going to keep riding the hot train with Aaron Gordon. He's starting at the 4, getting just a lot of rebounds. I mean, triple-double last game. Like, he's just contributing in all categories. He's scoring, he's rebounding, he's getting assists. He's getting defensive stats as well. 2 blocks, 3 blocks, 2 blocks, a steal. Like, Aaron Gordon's just really doing it all right now. He has become an elite fantasy option just the last few weeks. I expect him to keep the production going. They're going to give him 38 to 40 minutes. Like, I'm pretty sure the Magic are fighting for a playoff spot. At least I think they are. So they're going to need Aaron Gordon out there as much as possible. Even though it's a back-to-back, I have to assume he continues to get the monster minutes. So I really like Aaron Gordon. I think he's going to be low-owned again. Just makes for a really good tournament play, even with the expensive price tag. He still makes for really good tournament play at low ownership. I think a guy like DeAndre Ayton is going to get much more ownership. He's $100 less than Aaron Gordon on DraftKings. I do like Ayton a lot in this matchup against the Warriors, but I think when you factor in like the ownership, I'd probably play Aaron Gordon over him in tournaments. I think Gordon gives you 50-plus point upside, just like DeAndre Ayton does. Both these guys could easily drop 50-plus. I'd be fine playing them both if you want to go that route. I think in tournaments, though, I would side with Aaron Gordon over him. But then other power forwards, one of the things we might need to watch today is Kevin Love. So this is a back-to-back for the Cavs. We've seen them rest Kevin Love recently on back-to-backs. He could potentially be out today. If he is out, that's going to make a guy like Larry Nance much more appealing, especially if Andre Drummond were to be out as well. Drummond was out Friday night. We don't know yet if he's going to play or not on Saturday. But if you get Love out for rest because it's a back-to-back, you get Drummond out, like it's going to be Larry Nance and Tristan Thompson just getting massive minutes. So I would like Larry Nance quite a bit at 6,100. If Kevin Love plays, I think it's 6,700. Like, that is a little bit too cheap of a price tag for Kevin Love for the upside that he has. I think he's definitely in play in that mid-range, but make sure to keep an eye on his status. Hopefully we'll get an update after shoot-around, whether he's in or out. I think this is a 7:30 game. Or no, it's an 8 o'clock game. We should know before lock if he's in or out, if he's going to rest or not. But I'm pretty sure the last few back-to-backs they have rested Kevin Love was something I wanted to note. Just going back to that Portland-Atlanta game, you got Carmelo Anthony at 5,700 with no Damian Lillard. I think you can definitely play him at that salary. That's a really good matchup for him. In terms of cheap options, though, at power forward, if LeBron is out again, you got Kyle Kuzma at 4,600. He had a decent game last game with LeBron out, 26 DraftKings points in 29 minutes. I'd probably project him for similar numbers today, if not better, if LeBron were to sit again. So Kuzma becomes a viable cheap option at 4,600. But yeah, guys, I think that's probably it for power forward. I think we covered everything here. Trey Lyles, if he starts again at center, if they go with Lonnie Walker in the starting lineup, you could definitely go to Trey Lyles at 3,800. He'd be a fine guy to look to as a value. Didn't have that great of a game last game, but getting him starting at center does help his fantasy production overall. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the center position. We'll talk about center just before we end the video. So at the top, you got some of my favorite options, some of my favorite plays on today's slate at the top. Obviously, if LeBron's out, I'm going to love Anthony Davis. He's going to be a guy you can pay up for. Hassan Whiteside, I like a ton in this matchup against the Hawks. I think this is a smash spot for Whiteside. This is a matchup I've targeted pretty much all season. Centers against the Hawks. Pretty sure last time I checked, the Hawks have allowed the most fantasy points to centers this season, at least most fantasy points per game. I think when you factor in like salary and position, I'd probably rather roster McCollum for $100 less than Whiteside. I think I'd probably go to him over Whiteside. If we look at Yahoo's pricing, you do have McCollum at $40, whereas Whiteside's $42. So I think I would roster McCollum as well. Plus, we're going to talk about Bam Adebayo, who I love today and is also cheaper than Whiteside. But Hassan Whiteside's in a smash spot. He's going to get monster minutes if this is a close game. Can easily go for 50-plus DraftKings points against the Hawks. I just want to get as much exposure as I can to this game. So if you're playing multiple lineups today, Whiteside would probably be one of my highest owned centers if I had to guess. I definitely feel like my highest owned center, though, is going to be Bam Adebayo. Love Bam Adebayo in this matchup against Brooklyn. 8,600 on DraftKings, $38 on Yahoo. When you factor in the little bit of savings you get, I think I would prefer to roster him over Whiteside, just straight up. But both guys are great pay-up options today. If you want to play both guys in the same lineup, I have no problems with that at all. You're just going to have to find some value at other positions. But talking about Bam here, smash spot for him against Brooklyn. We know Brooklyn, one of the worst defensive teams versus centers. They've been a matchup you've targeted all season, even dating back to past seasons. Like Brooklyn has really struggled to defend centers. That hasn't changed this season. We've seen guys have big games against Brooklyn. I think John Collins is putting up a big game Friday night against them, to no surprise. Bam's had some success against Brooklyn this season. He's averaged about 44 DK points per game through them, or per game through 2 games against them. We know Bam's going to get big minutes if it's a close game. I mean, the dude's getting like 36, 38 minutes, played 41 minutes against Cleveland, and I think that was like in regulation. That wasn't even like an overtime game or anything. Only concern I guess I do have is that this is a back-to-back for the Heat, and Bam Adebayo has been dealing with some injuries. I think he was questionable with the ankle injury Friday. He wound up playing Friday night against the Mavericks. Not really sure how he's doing. That is something to monitor because he's been dealing with an injury. Maybe they could sit him because it is a back-to-back. But I'm assuming that Bam plays, and in this spot against Brooklyn, this is a matchup I love to target. Really like Bam Adebayo on the slate. One of my favorite pay-up options overall. Definitely one of my favorite centers on the slate by far. Him and Whiteside are my two favorite pay-up options. I think I would rather play those two guys over guys like Sabonis, Vooch, Ayton. If Drummond plays, I'd rather play Adebayo and Whiteside over all those guys. Obviously, though, if LeBron's out, I mean, we're going to need to try and get AD into our lineups at 10-2. But some other centers, Tristan Thompson was kind of popular Friday night. He was 5,700. He's now 6,900 today. So with that price hike, probably look elsewhere. Joe Val's really cheap. It's not the best spot against the Lakers, but if we're going to get 30, 32 minutes from Joe Val, I mean, the dude has 45, 50-point upside every time he steps on the court. So did want to mention him at 6,400. Marquese Chris, though, I like a ton. Like this matchup a lot for him against Phoenix. He's only 5,400 on DraftKings. This is a matchup he just had a lot of success in a couple days ago or a couple weeks ago. Played the Suns February 12th. Marquese Chris had 43 DraftKings points in that game in 31 minutes against them. It makes sense for him to have success against the Suns. The Suns are not a good defensive team. DeAndre Ayton overall is not a very good defender. You're going to need Marquese Chris out there for a lot of time. This feels like a spot where Marquese Chris is going to have to play 30, 32 minutes. They're going to need a guy with size out there to defend DeAndre Ayton. I don't think you're going to see the Warriors go small here. I think they're going to have Chris on the floor. And this is a guy that's been very productive when he gets the minutes. He's been a fantasy point per minute player. I mean, 25 minutes against Sacramento, still put up 39 DK points. He was dealing with some foul trouble in that game against the Lakers, so I don't really take that into account. Plus, the game blew out as well. He only played 23 minutes, had 4 fouls in 23 minutes. That was a tough matchup, just a rough game overall from Chris. I would expect a bounce-back performance from him today. The price tag came down $500 on DraftKings, which makes him that much even more appealing. We really like Marquese Chris today as a center mid-range option. He's definitely one of my favorite 5K plays. And really, there isn't a ton of value at center, so I think he's my favorite cheap option as well if I am going cheap. You could maybe play Miles Turner against the Cavs, or Jared Allen's still cheap at 4,800 against Miami. That's a tough matchup, though, for Jared Allen, so I'd kind of be a little hesitant on him. Turner against the Cavs, though, is fine at 5,300. But in terms of cheap punt plays at center, you do have Trey Lyles who you could go to. If he starts at center again and you get Lonnie Walker in the starting lineup, then that is a little bit of a bump for Trey Lyles at 3,800. He'd be fine to go to. I do want to mention Jakob Poeltl, so we need to keep an eye on the Spurs starting lineup. Last game, they started Lonnie Walker, like I said. I like Lonnie Walker today, assuming he does start, because he is so cheap on DraftKings. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities that you see Lonnie Walker just go back to the bench and they decide to start Jakob Poeltl today. So keep an eye on the Spurs starting lineup. Have a plan. If you can, put Lonnie Walker in your util spot and then swap to Jakob Poeltl in case he winds up starting. This is one of the last games on the slate. We have a 9 o'clock game between the Warriors and the Suns, but then you got two 8:30 games, and this is one of the two 8:30 games. So this Orlando-San Antonio game is one of the later games on the slate. I doubt we get the Spurs starting lineup before lock. Just be ready to make swaps in case Jakob Poeltl does wind up starting. If he does start, he's going to be the best value play on the slate. If he comes off the bench again, I just think he's too risky to roster off the bench. Came off the bench last game, only played 10 minutes, 11 fantasy points. You just never know with Pop. So I want him in the starting lineup in order to roster him at 3,200. I don't even want to roster Poeltl coming off the bench at 3,200. I want him in the starting lineup. So just keep an eye on that. Did want to mention Poeltl in case he does wind up starting somehow. He'd be a great value play. But yeah, guys, I think we covered everything for Saturday's slate. 7 games tonight. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I really appreciate you watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to drop a like before you get out of here. Hit that subscribe button as well. Click the notification bell so that way you do get notified every time I upload. And like I stated at the beginning of the video, if you want to check out my Patreon, you can do so. Link down below is my Patreon. You can see all the exclusive content I do have to offer over there. You can also give me a follow on Twitter, which is linked down below in the description, at DFS by Noah. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'd appreciate it. If you ever need to contact me, you can do so over there. But best of luck tonight, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and we will see you in the next video. Peace.